It took 13 months to design and build, and now it's hitting the open road. A Gold Coast company creating a one-of-a-kind luxury camper truck for families.
The R-Vee world just got flipped upside down. A 2026 campervan packed with comfort, clever engineering, and real-world practicality just hit the market at a price so absurdly low it knocked the wind out of dealers nationwide. And insiders immediately knew this one model was going to cause damage, because this wasn't just another budget build. This thing rivals mid-tier rigs while costing less than some used units. That's the kind of move that forces every brand to rethink their pricing overnight. And trust me, nobody in the industry wanted this to happen. And the craziest part, the reason it's so affordable is even more shocking than the price itself. Because the truth behind this price drop wasn't meant to go public, and once you hear it, everything else starts making sense. What's happening? The industry expected another predictable release. Instead, the Papillon PC 6.0 landed with a launch price under 40,000 euros. And that number sent a shockwave through manufacturers, dealers, and anyone holding expensive inventory. No one expected a complete, ready-to-roll R-Vee to enter at a figure usually reserved for stripped commercial vans or 5-year-old trade-ins. The moment that number became public, it forced everyone in the business to ask the same question. How did a manufacturer manage to break the unwritten pricing ceiling that kept new models comfortably inflated? Behind closed doors, industry insiders admitted they did not believe the price at first. Some thought it was a misprint. Others assumed it was a limited promo that would quietly disappear. But the price held, and that alone destabilized the market because it undercut comparable units by margins that dealers rely on to stay afloat. The shock came from the ripple effect. When a new R-Vee enters far below expectations, the entire pricing ladder shifts downward. Suddenly, older models sitting on lots looked bloated, mid-range stock began to feel misaligned, and the phone calls between dealers grew tense as they realized a new benchmark had been set. Now the question becomes why this happened. The secret oversupply. No one wanted buyers to notice. This price did not appear out of thin air. It was the result of a quiet but severe chassis oversupply that built up across Europe over the past 2 years. Delivery fleets placed huge orders for light commercial vans, expecting long-term growth. Then fuel spikes hit, routing software improved, and those fleets suddenly needed fewer vehicles on the road. The cancellations left suppliers holding thousands of unused platforms. Once a chassis is produced, it cannot sit forever. Warehouses fill, contracts mature, costs accumulate. Suppliers needed to clear space, and they did it quietly by offering terms far below normal rates to any manufacturer willing to take volume quickly. That timing opened a rare opportunity, and Berstner stepped in at exactly the right moment. The Papillon PC 6.0 became the beneficiary of a market imbalance that most people never hear about. These industry shifts rarely reach consumers because dealers prefer stability. When buyers discover how flexible upstream pricing can be, it raises questions they are not eager to answer. But this oversupply was too large to hide. Manufacturers that missed the window paid full price. Berstner did not, and that difference is a major reason the entire market felt the shock. Next, the focus shifts to the markup system this model just exposed. If you're finding these breakdowns useful, make sure you like the video and subscribe so you don't miss the next update. And if something here lines up with what you've seen in your own searches, tell me. Your insight helps shape the investigations ahead. The markup system that finally got exposed. For decades, the R-Vee industry relied on a markup structure that kept prices artificially high. Freight, preparation fees, holdbacks, interest charges, and preset dealer margins stacked onto every unit before the consumer ever saw a number. It was a predictable formula. High sticker, slow negotiation, modest discounts, and a final price that still protected dealer profit. The Papillon PC 6.0 broke that pattern simply by existing. When a new model appears far below expected pricing, it exposes how wide the gap is between production cost and retail markup. Suddenly, the normal prices on competing models began to look less like necessity and more like habit. Dealers felt the pressure first. With this new price anchoring the conversation, their margins on comparable units looked inflated. They could no longer rely on the old ladder where every model sat neatly within a predictable bracket. Buyers began comparing numbers, and the comparisons were not flattering. The real disruption came from transparency. When the Papillon entered with a low figure, backed by verifiable specs, the justification for oversized markups weakened. That forced the industry to respond in ways they hoped no one would notice. Now it is time to see how Berstner achieved this without sacrificing reliability. How Berstner cut costs without cutting corners. The shock deepened when experts realized the low price did not come from cheap construction. Berstner tightened the production process, not the product. The factory uses a modular build sequence that trims labor hours by reducing bottlenecks and allowing teams to work simultaneously rather than sequentially. Less time on the line translates directly to lower cost per unit, without compromising structural integrity. Supplier agreements added another layer of advantage. Bürstner locked in long-term contracts for insulation, wood panels, hardware, and fixtures before material costs escalated across Europe. These contracts shielded the Papillon PC 6.0 from the cost spikes that inflated other models this same season. Strategic simplicity kept costs down. Bürstner avoided fragile electronics, using accessible panels, logical wiring, and durable fittings. Fewer failure points make the R-Vee easier to maintain. That practical reliability, combined with its low entry price, is what unsettled the industry. And now, the rest of the script builds on this financial shock. The floor plan geometry that keeps operating costs low. The Papillon PC 6.0 looks compact from the outside, but its value comes from the geometry hidden inside the shell. The designers did not pack furniture wall to wall or force awkward shapes into the cabin. Instead, they used a straight-line traffic path from the cockpit to the rear, which reduces the amount of structural reinforcement needed under the floor. Less reinforcement means less weight, and less weight means fewer fuel stops over thousands of kilometers. That is a long-term cost many shoppers overlook until the receipts pile up. The turning radius also plays into cost savings. A shorter wheelbase allows the vehicle to slip into tighter spaces, which cuts down on wasted driving and reduces the constant reversing and recalculating that burns fuel in heavier rigs. You feel it not on day 1, but on day 90, when the fuel ledger tells the truth. Even load distribution matters. With the bed arranged laterally and storage placed low, the weight sits closer to the axle line. That reduces tire wear and puts less strain on the suspension. These are small engineering choices that quietly save money year after year. Now it is time to look at the materials themselves. Materials chosen for durability, not flash. The interior does not rely on shiny surfaces or delicate finishes that look good in brochures, but fail under real use. Bürstner chose panel materials with high wear resistance, meaning they can handle years of contact without peeling or splintering. This reduces midlife repairs, which often cost hundreds of euros and are rarely covered by warranties once the initial period ends. Insulation is another hidden expense saver. Instead of packing the walls with low-density filler that compresses after a few seasons, the Papillon PC 6.0 uses denser insulation that holds its form and reduces heat loss. Good insulation lowers the workload on the heating system during cold nights and cuts down the electrical draw when running appliances. Over time, that efficiency matters. Flooring follows the same principle. It is designed to resist moisture and abrasion, the two most common reasons older R-Vees require expensive replacement work. A durable floor might not be exciting, but replacing it can cost more than €1,000 once labor is included. These materials prove that cost savings come from thinking ahead, rather than cutting corners. The next step is understanding how the onboard systems support those savings. Utility systems designed to cut long-term expenses. The Papillon PC 6.0 keeps its utility system straightforward, so they cost less to operate over time. The water system uses narrow, efficient routing that reduces wasted liters every time the tap opens. A smaller tank might seem like a limitation on paper, but efficient plumbing means less water lost to pressure changes and fewer refills on extended trips. You end up paying less for campground water fees or bottled replacements. Electrical consumption follows a similar logic. Because the interior avoids unnecessary screens and high-draw gadgets, the battery system does not need constant charging to stay afloat. That means fewer hours plugged into paid electrical hookups and a gentler cycle load on the battery itself. A battery that avoids rapid cycling lasts longer, and anyone who has replaced an R-Vee battery knows those costs climb fast. Heating adds another financial angle. The system uses controlled airflow instead of brute force output, which burns less fuel in cold conditions. That matters over months of use, not days. Every liter saved stretches the travel budget further. All these systems are chosen to keep the running costs predictable. Next, we look at the design principles that tie everything together, the design philosophy that avoids gimmicks and saves money. The Papillon PC 6.0 does not rely on eye-catching gadgets to win attention. Its design philosophy focuses on simplicity and accessibility, which keeps ownership costs manageable over many years. Complex mechanisms and decorative extras often create maintenance traps, especially once the warranty period ends. Berstner took the opposite path by reducing the number of specialized components inside the cabin. Modular parts play a key role here. When fittings are designed in standard shapes and sizes, replacements can be sourced from multiple suppliers instead of a single premium vendor. This prevents the late-life sticker shock that comes when a simple broken hinge requires a manufacturer-specific order. The same logic applies to interior panels, which can be removed and replaced without dismantling entire sections of furniture. The wiring layout follows a service-friendly pattern as well. Instead of hiding harnesses behind sealed compartments, access points are placed in reachable locations. That makes diagnostics faster and lowers labor hours when fixes are needed. This approach does not make the R-Vee flashy, but it does make it sustainable. The decisions behind the simplicity protect the owner's expenses far more effectively than decorative features ever could. People finally crossing the affordability line without taking on heavy debt. When a new R-Vee enters the market below 40,000 euros, something shifts that does not happen often. For many people, the biggest barrier has always been the initial commitment. Traditional models pushed asking prices well beyond what most households were willing to finance. A lower entry number changes that math immediately. Instead of stretching a loan across 10 or 12 years, the monthly payments fall into a range that feels manageable without swallowing a large portion of income. The Papillon PC 6.0's price point allows more people to move forward without relying on aggressive financing structures. Lenders typically reserve their best terms for borrowers who keep the loan amount modest, and this model fits those thresholds. Lower borrowing means lower interest, and lower interest means less long-term financial drag. That alone places this vehicle into territory previously closed off to many households. Another factor is the down payment. A smaller purchase price reduces the upfront cash requirement, which often stops people from acting even when the monthly payment would be reasonable. When the entry barrier drops, more individuals can buy without draining savings or resorting to high-interest personal loans. Now the focus shifts to another group: first-time travelers navigating dealership tactics. How first-time travelers avoid add-on fees and dealer tactics. For someone purchasing their first R-Vee, the biggest threats often come from the extras stacked quietly onto the final invoice. Documentation fees, preparation fees, and surprise add-ons appear during signing and can add thousands of euros if left unchallenged. A lower base price helps blunt these charges because dealers cannot bury them as easily inside a higher sticker. Insurance is another area where first-time travelers face unexpected costs. Many insurers charge higher premiums for models equipped with complex electronics or heavy luxury editions. The Papillon PC 6.0 keeps those elements simple, which typically leads to more favorable insurance assessments. A unit with straightforward equipment avoids the surcharges that come with high-tech failure risks. Financing pitfalls also matter. When the purchase amount is lower, lenders have less incentive to push extended terms or bundled products. Borrowers end up with shorter loans and fewer financial traps. This prevents the cycle where a buyer pays interest long after the R-Vee's value has depreciated below the loan balance. First-time travelers gain a clearer path forward because the numbers stay aligned from start to finish. With that groundwork covered, it is time to turn to families who rethink their travel budgets entirely. Before we move into the final section, make sure you're subscribed. The next reports are already in motion, and the real price movements never hit the headlines. Staying tuned here is the easiest way to keep ahead of the shifts coming next. Families replacing airline trips with road travel. Rising airfare has forced many families to reconsider how they plan holidays. When the cost of 4 round-trip tickets jumps beyond 1,000 euros, not counting luggage fees or airport transfers, road travel begins to look far more reasonable. The Papillon PC 6.0 shifts the equation further by keeping fuel use in a lower bracket thanks to its weight and layout efficiency. The cost per mile calculation becomes straightforward. Even when fuel prices rise, the total expense of a long-distance drive often comes in well under the combined cost of flights. Lodging costs add another financial dimension. Hotels and rental homes can absorb a large portion of a family's budget, especially during peak seasons. A self-contained R-Vee eliminates those nightly charges and gives families control over where and when they rest. Seasonal travel amplifies these savings. During school breaks, airfare spikes dramatically, while road travel remains relatively stable. Families who used to set aside several thousand euros for a single holiday can stretch that same amount across multiple trips when lodging and airfare disappear from the ledger. With families covered, the next group uses this model in a completely different way. As a mobile work platform with predictable monthly costs. Remote workers, using the PC 6.0 as a cost-controlled mobility tool. Remote work has changed how people think about mobility. Instead of paying rent in a single location, some choose to live and work from the road. And the Papillon PC 6.0 supports this lifestyle without the heavy expenses associated with larger rigs. Predictable monthly costs make it easier to budget. Fuel usage stays moderate. Maintenance remains within manageable limits, and the overall footprint keeps parking fees low. Connectivity expenses are also clear. Modern mobile data plans offer reliable coverage across large regions, allowing remote workers to stay online without installing costly satellites or commercial-grade routers. When the electrical system avoids unnecessary drains, remote workers do not burn through energy storage or generator fuel just to keep laptops and hotspots running. Mileage deductions further support the affordability. Many self-employed individuals can claim kilometers traveled for work purposes, which helps offset wear and operational costs. This deduction becomes meaningful when the R-Vee is used consistently for business-related travel. For people who rely on predictable expenses to stabilize their work schedules, the Papillon PC 6.0 becomes a functional tool rather than a luxury item. With the financial benefits outlined, the next section turns toward the wider market impact ahead. Rival brands forced into quiet markdown cycles. The price of the Papillon PC 6.0 did not just make noise, it forced competing brands to adjust their listings quietly, without announcements, incentives, or glossy campaigns. Several well-known models that sat comfortably above 50,000 euros suddenly appeared on dealer sites with discrete reductions of 3,000 to 5,000 euros. These were not promoted as sales, they were simply new numbers on old stock. A few regional listings showed even deeper markdowns on long-standing units that had failed to move after recent seasons. One French dealer dropped a mid-range model by nearly 6,000 euros overnight, without attaching any explanation to the update. Silent discounting like this usually means inventory pressure has reached a point where dealers cannot hold firm without losing ground to a competitor's lower entry point. Manufacturers will not admit it, but the timing reveals the truth. Price cuts appeared weeks after the Papillon PC 6.0 launched, targeting similar chassis and layouts. These reductions look like a defensive move to stop buyers shifting toward the lower-priced option. These under-the-radar cuts set the stage for another force: regulation pressure that could reverse the price drop. While market competition pushes prices downward, regulation has the power to push them back up. Across Europe, emission standards continue tightening, and manufacturers must comply with yearly adjustments that affect engine tuning, exhaust systems, and fuel efficiency targets. Each new tier adds cost to production, and those costs eventually reach the sticker price. Fuel mandates also play a role. As cities expand low-emission zones, manufacturers shift toward cleaner powertrains, which carry higher development expenses. Even if the Papillon PC 6.0 benefits from current timing, future regulations could increase the cost of building similar models. Production quotas amplify these pressures. When factories are required to allocate a certain percentage of their output to greener drivetrains, it reduces the economies of scale for diesel-based platforms, lifting their prices even faster. Taxation is the final lever. Some regions are discussing levies on older diesel engines to discourage long-term use. If enacted, these taxes would influence resale values and raise ownership costs. When ownership costs rise, manufacturers adjust pricing strategies to maintain profit margins. In short, regulations can undo price drops that competition created. Before exploring the timing window ahead, there are ownership risks worth understanding first. The ownership risks you need to see before spending €1. Every R-Vee purchase carries long-term obligations, and understanding them prevents expensive surprises later. Depreciation is the first and most predictable factor. Even models priced reasonably will lose value steadily during the first few years. If someone finances a large portion of the cost, they risk owing more than the vehicle is worth unless the loan is structured carefully. Diesel uncertainty adds another layer. While diesel remains practical for long-distance travel, policy movements across Europe signal stronger restrictions ahead. If cities tighten entry rules or increase operating fees, the value of diesel-powered R-Vees could fall faster than expected. That downward pressure influences trade-in offers and resale opportunities. Warranty coverage varies, and some parts only receive 2 years of protection. Failures outside that window can cost hundreds or thousands, especially with brand-specific components. Rising demand can delay replacements, creating unexpected expenses and disruptions to your plans and budget. These factors do not make the Papillon PC 6.0 risky. They simply highlight the realities of ownership. With that foundation established, the final chapter focuses focuses on timing, the 30-day timing window that could save or cost thousands. Market shifts do not happen slowly. They move in windows, and one of those windows is now taking shape. When a low-priced model enters the market and competitors respond with reductions, dealers face a decision point. For roughly 30 days after those markdowns appear, the pricing patterns tend to fluctuate as inventory managers adjust their strategies. During this period, buyers often see temporary reductions as dealers attempt to clear older stock before manufacturer incentives reset. Once that 30-day cycle ends, pricing usually stabilizes. If demand rises during this window, discounts shrink. If demand lags, a few additional units may drop further before the next seasonal reset. Watching this pattern closely can prevent overpaying by several thousand euros. Dealers cannot hold aging, floor plan financed models for long, so pressure forces short-lived price cuts. Once the next shipment cycle hits, especially under rising regulatory costs, prices may tighten. Choosing the right 30-day window can mean saving money instead of overpaying. That's the full breakdown of the campervan that just blindsided the entire industry. Now, I want to hear from you. Would you buy a rig like this at that price? Or is it too good to be true? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you found this eye-opening, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Big shifts are coming, and you won't want to miss the next one.